On this episode of the John 1911 podcast, are red dots a thing? 300 Norma Magnum, VP9 trigger upgrades, and what's my favorite rifle action? Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to the John 1911 podcast. This is Marky, and we're going to do something a little bit different today. Instead of the morning conversation that sometimes Freeze and I do on these podcasts, yesterday I had submitted a request for questions from the listener, and I don't even know how many pages I've got here, so multiple pages of questions. Some of them I can't answer because I'm probably not even qualified to answer them, but they are on the list, so I'll do the best that I can, and we'll try to work our way through it. So, all right, so here we go. So the first question is 300 national match, yay or nay? I think that's probably a yay. If you don't know what 300 Norma Magnum, 300 NM, 300 Norma Magnum. So if you're in trying to get into this uber long range rifle game, there's a caliber that's been getting more and more popular with some of the military and tactical precision shooters. 300 Norma Magnum, and my understanding of it is, from little I've seen, is that it is it's basically think of it as a 338 Lapua in 30 caliber bullet that doesn't beat the hell out of you. It can go just as far. I think there's probably some issues with barrel wear, but I think that's probably the future. I will say this, I have a couple stories. I know a guy that's a very well-known and very accomplished shooter, hunter and shooter, and he was playing with Norma Magnum because it's the cool kid caliber, and that's all great. And his one thing he had happened to him was when he was shooting an animal, it was in Europe, if he needed a follow-up shot, like let's say he was working a calling tag so he could shoot multiple animals to kind of, for some land management of animals. His follow-up shots were a lot slower because of the recoil in the scope and the gun. So, and he wasn't trying to shoot 2,000 yards. He was making shots that are a little bit more realistic. And so I think he kind of decided to back off a Norma Magnum, at least for practical applications. So if you're one of those guys and you want to buy a switch caliber gun, or you want to have a 308, a 223 or 65, 223 65, and maybe 300, and you're like, well, should I get a 338 Lapua? It's like, well, you know what? If you have a Norma Magnum, the 300 NM, you probably don't need a 338 Lapua. It's probably interchangeable. So I think that's probably the future, but who knows? What is your favorite rifle action? For me, that's obviously going to be Blaser, the straight pull actions. No big surprise there to the regulars. I guess technically it would be the R93 Blasers because I really like the tactical too. I do have a Blaser R8, which is a little bit beefier action. It can handle, as a matter of fact, the R8s, the Blaser R8s can shoot 338 Lapua and 300 Norma Magnum. So, but it's probably not what you really wanted to know. My favorite rifle action traditionally in the U.S. is going to be Winchester Model 70. I'm not a Remington guy. I don't have anything against Remington. I'm not like one of those people, but I like the Mauser controlled feed. I like the 3-position safety that the Winchester Model 70 does. So, for me personally, a lot of the cool kid guns that are out now, like this, you'll see if you get on all these gun forums, there's all these uber expensive $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 guns, and these bolt guns, and pretty much off the bat, they're all based off of Remington 700, and there's good reasons for that. So I'm not saying that 700's not the way to go. It obviously is because the market is driving it. For me personally, 9 times out of 10, I'm like, I wouldn't even be interested in that because I prefer a Winchester action. So Winchester Model 70 for me. So, if you would want to know who makes Winchester 70 actions today, FN makes pre-64 Winchester Model 70 actions, those SPR guns. They've tightened up that line a little bit, but you can get some hell of a nice guns. and I have no experience with this gun, but the Kimber bolt action rifles, they even have started doing, I think they've dipped their toe into the precision rifle side of the spectrum on that. All their guns are 3-position safety Winchester Model 70 actions. And so, maybe if I ran across a Kimber that was one of their precision guns, maybe it was used, or maybe it wasn't selling for a good price because it's a Kimber and the cool kids are kind of poo-pooing it, and I could get a deal on it, I would pick that gun up just because I like the action and I'd be curious to see how it works. So, favorite RDS, favorite red dot sight. It's going to be Aimpoint, the Aimpoint Micros. That's the ones I have. That's the ones I have the most experience with. I'm not a great expert on red dot sights. I've got the one that the ones that we run, and those are the ones that I know. Favorite brand of scope. For me personally, I'm real familiar with the Schmidt & Bender scopes. I'm real comfortable with those. I've run those the longest, and as always was a good balance back in the day. It was a good balance between the clarity of the optics and the lightweight of the design. So it wasn't a crazy heavy scope, or maybe like back then US Optics or some of the other higher end scopes, they were good, but they were also heavy. And it was like Schmidt & Bender had kind of figured out a way back in the day to kind of get lightweight and ruggedness and durability and clarity. And so I generally, my first go-to brand is Schmidt & Bender. If there's one I'm real happy with right now, we have some Steiner scopes, so I can't speak with every Steiner about every Steiner optic, but the Steiner scopes that we have, that we've been playing with, they're pretty good. I like those. They're lightweight as well, and they're feature rich, and they seem to be working okay. We'll see more of them as we work them out on a new range. 350 Legend, yes or no? You know what? Yes. We've had a lot of conversations about 350 Legend over here, Freeze and I, since that came out. And yeah, I know there's other straight wall cartridges that you can run in ARs, and that's fine, but I think the 350 is a little bit more practical, and apparently it's designed to be not super expensive. And I think that's really interesting. Now, I don't know if 350 Legend's going to work well as a suppressed round. So, I don't know what would happen to like, how much competition there would be between 300 Blackout and 350 Legend. For me personally, my applications, I would probably, if I had to choose between 300 Blackout and 350 Legend, I would probably choose 350 Legend, simply because I look at suppressed 300 Blackout in particular, but 300 Blackout in general it's a round that's designed for uber suppression at room distances. And I don't mean suppressed, I mean so quiet people outside the building can't hear you. And so that's a very limited 30 rounds of it, 25 rounds of it. That's a very limited application, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I think a lot of these guys that are buying 300 Blackout, they're buying it because they don't have any other options and and they like suppressed. But I know there's been people shooting 300 Blackout, to hunt, and they've had questionable success. And that's why you're seeing a drive to like maybe the 350 Legend, or there's the guys down at Q are coming up with they were calling it the 8.6 Creedmoor, and now I guess they're calling it the 8.6 Blackout. So it's a big 338 caliber, bullet that they can shoot subsonic and schwack stuff with. So, personally, 350 Legend is a little bit more practical for me because I'm not going to shoot 30 rounds of 300 Blackout uber suppressed across a room. It's just not what I would be doing with it. So, thoughts on the Barrett MRAD contract for SOCOM? I don't know a whole lot about the Barrett. I remember when there was a lot of complaints about the Barrett because they had promised, it's a switch caliber gun. And for the people that don't know what this is, it's a bolt action gun. It's a switch caliber gun. I don't know if they offer it 223, but off the top of my head, it's 308, probably 300 Winchester, maybe 300 Norma Magnum probably is in there, and maybe 338 Lapua. So, but what had happened was people had bought this gun, with all the promises of all these caliber changes, and for the longest time, for some reason, Barrett did not come out with those, and it really hurt that gun. It really, really hurt that gun on the civilian market. And I don't know why that was. I don't know if they were having issues getting the stuff to be reliable or accurate, or maybe they were trying to fill contracts, or maybe their other guns that they sell were just taking too much machine time. I have no understanding as to why that happened, but for years you would hear about the MRAD and people waiting for their caliber conversion. So I guess that's done, and people are possibly signing contracts for the MRAD. I think switch caliber bolt action guns make a lot of sense, practically speaking, and as a Blaser guy, that should be obvious. I think the market is slowly starting to catch up, because you're seeing all of these. You started seeing that 4 or 5 years ago, switch caliber guns from Accuracy International, and then all the boutique makers in the U.S. are starting to come out with them, and switch calibers are not designed like you're out in the field and I'm going to switch my caliber to this and do. It's not what it's for. But like if you have a gun that's 338 Lapua and 300 or 308, for example, the bulk of your training and your shooting and your practice and things you need to do are going to be 308. It makes a lot of sense, but if you do like an 80-20 or 90-10 training cycle. Also, you have to realize a lot of these military units in particular, they tend to operate in worldwide areas. So, they might be on workups and going overseas somewhere where they can, maybe they don't have real long shots, and maybe they go some other place and they're looking at the terrain, or it's an urban terrain, and they can get really long shots. So they like to have the ability to switch out some of these calibers ahead of time. And also, if you can switch out a caliber, the switch calibers need to be accurate. You shouldn't have to bed the gun and do all that other kind of stuff. That was always the big bane of switch caliber guns in the U.S. or just in the civilian market. You couldn't make all this stuff. You couldn't make it all work. So anyway, yeah, I think it's a good thing. If I wasn't so deep in the Blaser game, would I be interested in a MRAD Barrett? Good chance. There's a real good chance of that. I think that's pretty interesting. When will the range be done? The range is done. There's always more to do. Lots going on. I mean, we almost had a tornado last night, but the range is done. Next question, how far will it go? Well, right now we have shots to 600 yards, and we designed the range to shoot, 900 yards. We could get 1,000, but that's really pushing it. We're going to be, just for reasons that it wouldn't make sense on audio to try to explain to somebody. It's a 900-yard range, but we have to have a tower, and we had some issues with a vendor on a tower last year. Basically, they kept trying to raise the price on us, and so we had to kill that project. So we'll have to research building a tower in 2019. So hold on, let me take a drink of coffee. All right, where is the range? The range is in the Midwest. It's in the Midwest. We have another range on the East Coast, but the range that you're seeing is in the Midwest. Is it open to the public? No, the range is not open to the public. It was never intended to be open to the public. Not that I'm not saying that never, ever, ever, never is there a chance that somebody or some of you or somehow somebody could end up on the range for some reason. That is certainly possible. It's, our range. We can do what we want with it. But right now it is not open to the public. We're not planning on operating it, making it open to the public. We haven't really designed it to be open to the public. It is more of a range for us to use for our business and things that we do. Now, if you're a police department or a law enforcement agency and you don't have access to a range, we have been agreeing to host some police departments. And so realistically, if you're listening to this and you're a police department, if you're not in the Midwest, it's probably not worth your time to pick up and come here. So, I mean, I'm sure you have something much closer. And if you're a police department that's within kind of like our region, either we know you or we're going to be pretty easy to hear from you. So, this isn't a call to ask for police departments to reach out, because it's basically, we already know, you know us and we know you already. So, all right, let's go to page 2. Let me drink some coffee. Do you recommend a trainer? I suppose this means gun school. No. I don't. Why do you always say the Mossberg 500 is weak? It's just a weaker design. It's it's kind of a sheet metal gun. It's just not as durable as, say, an 870. I'm a Mossberg guy, so it's, I think I should say on the other side of that conversation, I think the Mossberg is a ergonomically better gun. I prefer Mossberg over 870, but I also don't think a Mossberg 150, 200 years from now, 150 or 200-year-old Mossberg is probably not going to run well. A 100-year-old Remington 870 will. So there's your answer. Will you get a GRS chassis from Blaser? That would be a no. GRS is a company in Europe. They have a new chassis system for the Blaser R8. I think they call it the Ragnarok, or it's one of those, Norse Viking words. Ragnarok, I think, is maybe how you pronounce it. And that they are a separate company from Blaser, and we do not really have any relationship with GRS or Blaser. But if we do pick up a Ragnarok chassis, it'll be because we have to buy it, and that's just how that goes. Why don't you shoot Glocks? I do shoot Glocks. I have probably more Glocks than most of you. Why don't you shoot 1911s, Mr. John 1911? Ouch. I have a 1911 right here, right in front of me. I carried a 1911 for 12 years professionally, and I am a 1911 guy, but the reality is, time marches on and thing marches on, and, a modern standard capacity 15, 16, 17, 18 round 9mm double stack polymer pistol is just the way to go. I mean, it just is. So, you'll be seeing more of our 1911s on the range and on videos, as we kind of show more of the range and more stuff we're doing. We have a lot of stuff going on in the background with some constructions and barricades and setting up one of the pits and all that. So let me drink some coffee here. Are 9mm 1911s okay? Yes, I was one of the biggest advocates of a 9mm 1911. Let's see, 28. Over a decade ago. Ashbury Precision Sniper's Hide Edition Rifle. Thoughts? Oh, that's okay. So this is a Sniper's Hide Edition. This is a Sniper's Hide special rifle made by Ashbury Precision. Sure, it'll be fine. I have no idea. I don't know anything about it. You know what? Ashbury did reach out to us a couple years ago and invited us to come to their facility that's not that far from us on the East Coast. And, I think it was really, they were more interested in us shooting one of their guns instead of us shooting our guns. And it wasn't really something we wanted to do. And I'll bet you dollar to donuts that it's whatever this gun is, it's a Remington 700. So there's your answer there. Should I get a 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor? That's a tough one. That's a tough one. I don't have enough information here because I don't know what what this is a reference to. I mean, generally speaking, I think you should get a 308. Military surplus ammo. Again, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're looking at me and you're like, hey, I want to shoot the PRS series, and should I get a 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor? Well, get the 6.5 Creedmoor, but the reality is you're still going to lose because the cool kids don't even shoot 6.5 Creedmoor. It's a funny story. So it used to be that it got to be so bad you had the you'd have these matches, and you would have actual people that shoot guns for a living show up to some of these matches, and so you had enough of them, and there were some questions as to whether, well, why should you go to this, or you're getting smoked and gamer guns and all this. So and there were questions as to what was the benefit of sending some of these guys to these trainings, because they're not working, or they're taking vacation, or this is their training cycle. So some of these matches started breaking off categories for 308 or military calibers, and so you would have you'd have the complete field of shooters, and then top to bottom, number 1 to number 100 or whatever it would be. But then they would break off the 308 shooters, and that would typically be cops or military, or some other group that's in between that, and with their 308 guns. And then they could have a separate, I won first in law enforcement, or I won first in military caliber. Well, what happened was a lot of people started getting into the 6.5 Creedmoor, because it's like, man, you can shoot the 6.5 Creedmoor and you can run with the big dogs. Well, that's you're out of date. The big dogs was a long time ago. Right now, you show up at 6.5 Creedmoor, you're almost to the point that they would need to break 6.5 Creedmoor off into its own category, because it's basically 6.5 Creedmoor and then the winners. Because 6.5 Creedmoor has almost become the 308, not in the terms of it being a military caliber, but in terms of it doesn't compete. So if you are debating from a precision rifle standpoint, 308 or 6.5 Creedmoor, flip a coin. It's whatever you're most comfortable with. If you like being able to go to Walmart and buy 308 ammo, or like cheap ammo, or do whatever because you're doing most of your stuff inside of 600 yards, buy the 308. If you got to have 6.5 Creedmoor because you just can't sleep at night, if you don't have 6.5 because anyone doesn't have a 6.5 is a loser, buy 6.5. Doesn't matter. Still not going to win anyway. What do you think of the fix from Q? I think it's really interesting. It's a bolt gun from Kevin Brittingham over at Q in New Hampshire, and it's a whole new take on a bolt action gun, and it's not as crazy as a Blaser, but it's pretty neat. Oh, I'm taking an extra coffee here. God, I'm not even through the first page yet. Is a 223 bolt gun worth it? Absolutely. I think they're awesome. Do you shoot 300 blackout? No. Here we go. Officer Mike had a 30 caliber can for his 5.56 rifle. Why? Because he can use it on multiple guns. Because I'm sure he's got 30. Officer Mike isn't here, but I'm sure he's got 30 caliber, bolt action guns, or 30 caliber. Well, I know he does 30 caliber ARs, and so he can use this suppressor, whatever it was, on multiple guns. And he may pick up a few decibels of sound, but it is what it is. Okay. All right. I probably hope that wasn't too loud. I'm just switching the sheets here. When will the Army switch to 6.8? Have no idea. I have no faith in the Army on that at all. What's your favorite 1911? Early Ed Brown. I don't like the new ones. What's your favorite reference gun? Oh, man. This is talking about guns in the armory. So we have a lot of older guns. Man, I couldn't even... There's so many guns that you guys haven't even seen. I have no idea. I guess realistically, I would say my favorite reference gun is probably the one that we're buying today. So, because we're always looking for new stuff. And the thing is, if there's guns we're looking for, that we have a list of stuff that we're always trying to pick up and and source, but we don't talk about it because we don't want to drive up the competition on the stuff that we're looking for. So probably what's your favorite reference gun? The gun that you don't know about because we haven't bought it yet. 224 Valkyrie, yay or nay? Don't know. I'm gonna wait and see on that one. Look, I think it's neat. AR-15 sized rifle that you can, shoot out easily to, 800 yard is easy, and I think 1200 yard maybe. I think it's interesting. It's probably got some barrel life issues. Maybe not. I don't know. Let me put it this way. if you are asking me this and you're like, should I get a 223 or should I get a 224 Valkyrie? You don't understand what 224 Valkyrie is. Get the 223, get the 5.56. Did you break the black plastic bipod? I haven't seen it in a while. No, that's the what the hell was that thing called? Can't even remember. We have a bipod for one of our rifles that's made of some kind of crazy plastic that they use in like hip replacement surgery. And it's from Europe, and it was crazy. It's more expensive than a Glock pistol. And the thing weighs ounces, and I mean almost single-digit ounces. It is crazy lightweight. And you'll probably see more of that this summer. Do you think long-range hunting is ethical? Give me your definition of long-range hunting. I think that's the real question, is what's long range? And I think long range is also based on your skill level. I was out west with a buddy of mine, and we could not get closer. We kept trying to, we were moving in on mule deer, and we could not get closer than 400 yards of this deer. We really is like 485 or 465, and he busted us, and there was just no getting around it. So he had to take the shot at well over 400 yards, or more like 500 yards. You know, and some guy sitting in West Virginia talking about a 400 or 500 yard shot, he's going to think that's unethical as hell. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. That's more reflection of the shooter than the situation. So, will you ever review a Ruger RPR? One, we're not gear reviewers. Two, you know what? If I ever got it, I have no interest in the RPR, really, like purchasing one. But if we ever ran across one at a good price, used, I might consider it. The one that most interests me is the one that they discontinued, which is in 243. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to be like, oh, contrarian. I actually had seen one used, same trip as the long-range hunting trip, in 243 at a gun store in Montana, and came back to look at it again and maybe buy it. I was going to give it the freeze, and it was gone. So, yeah, whatever. What happened to the SCAR 16 truck gun? It is in the armory. It's here. What happened to the PTR truck gun? It's in the armory. It's here. Who do I call to get my 22 kit replaced from CMMG? Do you have a phone number? I do not have a phone number. I dealt with them all directly on private message and email. If you're having an issue with if you have an early CMMG kit, I don't know how to tell them apart. The kit that we had from 9 years ago was Parkerized, or it was dark in color. And then the new one we have, it looks like it might be stainless. So I would think a stainless kit is probably the new kit. But if your kit is dark, maybe you should get it replaced. Send me a private message, and I'll reach out to the dude, and, you know, we'll get it all figured out. Is 338 Lapua Magnum dead since 300 Norma Magnum is in use? That's the same question. We kind of answered that. I don't think it's dead, but I think it's in trouble. You know what? I'm gonna tell you an interesting story. This was there's a guy I know, and he was pretty intimately involved in the in one of the Army sniper rifle, or maybe SOCOM. One of these Uber groups had to put it out RFP, and they wanted this Uber gun. And I think the whole project eventually fell apart. And they were doing all the testing out at Crane. And this guy that I know, he was obviously going out to Crane all the time. And he's a world-class shooter too, but he was involved in making a part that they were bidding on for this gun. And we were talking about it, and there was rumors on the internet, but nobody really had any information. He told me at the time, he's like, hey man, it's kind of it seems like they're really interested in 300 Norma Magnum. And that's the first time I had ever really heard of 300 Norma Magnum. And it was, years ago, because these guys out of Crane were shooting it. They were messing with it back then. And this is probably, this is years ago. Obviously not 20 years ago, but it was, it might have even been a decade. It was a while ago. 300 Norma Magnum. It seemed like they were interested in it. So, all right, new page, new cup, new sip of coffee. Okay, more shotguns. Okay, yeah, we have lots of shotguns. SBR pistol brace. For me, SBR. I'm not a brace guy. I get it. Look, for me, if I bought a pistol, what I like about the pistols, especially like an AR pattern type of rifles, is, at least I hope, because I never bought one, is that the gas system should be set up to run, the whole system should be set up to run as a pistol or super short. So, you can buy it and shoot it off the shelf, and you're not trying to chase function if you're chopping the thing down. So basically, if I ever bought a pistol AR, the first thing I would do is that 5 minutes after I got it, I'd get out the NFA paperwork and I would submit the form to SBR it, and then I would have it for a year or however long it's taken now to get the NFA paperwork back to shoot it with a brace. And the second that I got cleared for SBR, I'd rip that brace off. To me, a brace, I know I'm in a minority here. To me, the brace is a crutch to get me across the finish line and save me some machine work later. What's the latest on a SIG 320? Is it safe? I assume it is. That gun's probably going to take over the pistol world. What do you think of the Roland Special? Oh, Roland Social. Well, you know what? I copied and pasted in here, so it's Roland Social. I don't like them. They're fine. I come from a school of thought that running a brake or compensator on a defensive gun is just a no-go for me, especially if you're like rolling around on the ground and you're doing. I mean, I just shooting from retention. I just don't shoot. I don't believe in it. So, like, here's the thing: like, you see these Glocks, the Glock ported guns. Those are a no-go for me as well. So, if a Glock ported gun is a no-go for me, a Roland Special is going to be a no-go for me. Brazilian school shooting. I heard something about it. I don't know what's going on with that. Will Trump veto red flag laws? I have no idea. Is there a bill working its way through Congress on that one? I mean, look, if you're counting on Donald Trump or any Republican to save you, you're in trouble. You need to have your interest in line, on politics to make it so that this kind of stuff doesn't even get to a point where it is a bill where it has enough votes. So anyway, yeah, 2-piece guide rod or 1-piece for 1911. Neither. I plug. Will snap caps damage my guns? No. There probably is some exception to that, but we have snap caps all over the place. Who do you recommend for VP9 trigger jobs? Nobody. I think the VP9 trigger's light enough already, and messing with it's asking for trouble. Will you do more videos on your Luger P08? I know you have one. Yes. Thoughts on the new 8-point pistol RDS? That must be I don't know what they call it. It's the one that's a box that seems like it's got a flat front and a flat back, so stuff doesn't get caught in it. I think that's really interesting. That might be in our future. CZ P09 or P07? Why? Don't know. Never touched one. I mean, other than like a secondhand showcase. I have no real experience shooting them. What's the most reliable 10mm 1911? Glock Model 20. Is Hudson Manufacturing out of business? Yes. What's a good officer-sized 1911? What's a good officer-sized? Is this asking me who? Who makes a good one? Nobody. Will you do a review of the SIG P365? No, we're not gear reviewers, and I don't shoot pocket rockets. Can I meet you guys at Camp Perry? Probably not. We're going to probably stop going to Camp Perry, but that could change. What happened to the ZB26? That's over at Matt's at the 07 being built as we talk. Matt had a license. He had to move, and so he had to stop work on stuff because his 07 license the address has to match the license. And so he literally, it was in the same town, same city, but he moved, and so we had to stop working on everything. I need new sights for my VP9 recommendation. I'll tell you what, I don't know what you have, but any sight that you get for a modern handgun, I think it should be a ledge sight. So you could either get the factory LE sights that H&K makes. I have those. Personally, I think they're great. I think they're some of the best sights out of the box on the market today. They're probably a little small for me and my age and my eyes. And I know that the Larry Vickers Wilson Combat, they make sights that are they're bigger. I'm sure they make something for the VP9. I would start there. RDS for pistols, yay or nay? Probably yes. I'm not there yet personally, but as I recommended earlier, I'm getting older. My vision's not getting any better, and I think that's probably coming. Coffee break. Have you? Whoa. Have you ever seen a suicide at a gun range? No. Ruger Lightweight Commander or Springfield Range Officer Compact? Compact Commander. I'm not familiar with either one of those off the top of my head, but I would... The range officers, I think, are basically GI guns, like they have spurs and GI controls on them. And Ruger Lightweight Commander, if a Commander means it has a full-size grip on it and the range officer compact is not, I will take the Commander full-size gun all day, every day. I don't like pocket rocket guns, and the smaller you make a handgun, the more sensitive it is to having shit go wrong, especially on 1911. Arcanic pistols, good guns. My local gun store has one on sale. I believe they are. I've never fired one. Freeze is very interested in them. I've heard nothing but good things about them. So yeah, buy with confidence, especially if you can get a good deal on it. M1 Garand, 30-06 or is 308 okay? Personally, I would get a 308. I'll even say this. A nice 308 M1 Garand is actually something on our to-buy list. 1911, buy or build. For me, buy. Freeze probably would say build. Are magwells too big for CCW? I guess it depends. No, that depends on the gun and the magwell. I think you see a lot of people do a lot of good with them. You know what? I'll tell you what. Glock 19, it's a bit too small for my hands. We have a couple of 19s over here, Gen 4s. And I've debated having a magwell put on that gun so it doesn't pinch me on a reload and my skin would clear, and then it also would give me a little bit extra length, and it could even be a faster reload. And that, I would think, a Glock 19 with a nice magwell on it basically turns that gun into the G45 Glock 45. So I think that's interesting too. So Q&A for next podcast. What's your take on red dot optics for handguns slowly creeping into law enforcement? That it stays or just a current fad? Thanks. Red dots are coming for law enforcement. They are, especially as most police officers are they're not gun people, and look, I'm not trying to cap on police officers because I don't think that's fair. I think gun people in particular, if you're a gun nerd, like if you're listening to this podcast, you're a gun nerd. Let me take a drink of coffee before I say this. People get real myopic in their opinions and their perceptions on how things work. They want every police officer to be a pistolero, and they want every soldier to be like, I don't know, SEAL Team 6, Navy SEAL, Night Elf, Delta Force, Mohawk Ninja dude. And the reality is, a cop has to, besides all the gun stuff they have to do. They have to pass all the qualifications, maintain the qualifications, and shoot all the stuff. They got to know traffic codes. They got to be psychologists. They got to know how to fist fight and ground fight. They have to take defensive driving courses. They have to know all these different things. They have to know how the courts work. They have to know how this paperwork works. They have to learn how all these codes and all the we're signal 7, or he's or we're 10-8. I mean, they have to know all the codes and all the things for the radios, for the communications and the comms, and that can change from state to state or county to county. There's so much stuff. They have to know about dope, and they have to know about sex trafficking, and they have to know about suspicious behaviors. There's so many things a cop has to juggle and handle, that if you can give them a gun with a little red dot on it, and you can just from day one teach them to push that gun straight out and see a dot as opposed to fishing for it, but they've never, if they start as baby cops on a red dot and they learn to push that gun out, I think you'll see. I think that's probably into their advantage. So I think it long term on the event horizon, I think it's here to stay. TRS won't slingshot. TRS. Is that a Les Bear gun? 1911? TRS Thunder Ranch. If that's a Les Bear 1911 and it's one of the early ones, that's not uncommon. I talked to Les about that. It had become kind of a thing where people were like, oh yeah, the guns are so accurate because they're so tight. And even Les admitted to me, he's like, it's becoming a problem. People can't rack these goddamn guns. So Les told his gunsmiths to back off on some of that a little bit. So you may see a window of guns probably from the 90s where the Thunder Ranches won't, or the Les Bears, you can't hardly rack the guns. And I have personally had that happen, especially with the hammer down. Can you help me build a MUSOC? M-E-U-S-O-C, MUSOC. That must be a 1911. No, I cannot. There's people that have done a lot of stuff on that. There used to be a guy, Dave Berryhill. I don't know. Maybe Dave has passed, but he had a lot of stuff published on the internet that I'm sure still out there. You can easily build a MUSOC 1911. I can't activate the safety on my 1911. Can I change it? Sure, why not? This is somebody joking with us. Of the hundreds of Singer 1911s made, how many thousands have you seen at gun shows? More than 100. My 1911 has the old style lanyard loop. Will it hurt the value if I switch it to a recessed modern design? If it's a collectible, yeah. But if you're carrying the gun, no. I don't know what I'm looking at here. Is this like a GI gun? Probably has to be for the lanyard loop. The lanyard loop is built into the mainspring housing. Take the mainspring housing out. Don't cut it off. Replace the mainspring housing. Set it aside. Put a flat modern mainspring or anything. All kinds of stuff you can do in there. You can all kinds of weird mainsprings. Put a new mainspring in the gun. Mainspring housing. Run the gun. Do what you want. And then if you ever want to convert it back, you still have the part. Not a problem. It doesn't require any fitting. My grandfather brought back a 1911 from World War II. Can you appraise it? No, but send me pictures of it, and we'll probably point you in the right direction as to who can. Why don't you hide serial numbers on your guns? Because my guns aren't stolen. Did you get a CMP 1911 yet? No, we're probably not going to get one. I have a Smith & Wesson 547 speed loader. Do you still need any? We generally do not, if you want to give us one. But, they're fairly expensive, and we have enough of them. So, but occasionally on our website, we have some posts on that, and so people helped us out. But you'll still occasionally see somebody come into that post and say, hey, I need one of these. Does anybody have any? Post it in there. Eventually somebody will reach out to you and say, hey, I'd like to buy that off of you. Why not? My 1911 has a failure to feed. What do I do? Probably start with the magazines. I can't answer that. I don't know. I have to see the gun and the shooter, and I just probably magazine first because it's the easiest, and start from there. Sorry, I can't do that one. The ejector on 1911 cracked. Can I fix this myself? Yes. Armin Swenson 1911, keep it or sell it. If you know who Armin Swenson is, I guess it depends. I mean, how much are Armin Swenson 1911s going for today? Like, okay, you know what? Okay, if I had an Armin Swenson 1911, what would I do with it? We could keep it as a reference gun, but does it really achieve anything as a reference gun? Does anybody get anything out of it for us manipulating Armin Swenson 1911 versus, you know, the 8 other 1911s we have over here? No. But I could maybe sell that and buy a machine gun, so I'd probably sell it. Solid trigger or Videcki trigger? Both. Doesn't matter. What do you think of Gun Crafter Industries 50 GI 1911? I don't pay attention to those. Satin, chrome, or stainless steel finish? Both. What I would do is I would do stainless steel, but with a flat matte finish, bead blasted, not shiny. Front cocking serrations on a 1911, do they hurt the value? If the gun comes with them, no. If you put them on the gun, depending on what it is, probably. I'm not against front cocking serrations at all, but I don't know if I would be, adding them to a gun. Unless you had like a total bitch gun, like I wouldn't be adding them to a gun. Okay, Mike, well, hold on. My question in response to your post, he's on 2 pages here. Okay, hold on. Mike, okay. Switch this over, take a drink of coffee. 45 minutes, we got to wrap this one up. It can't go much over an hour. Marky, what line of work are you in that you have a front office staff and a firearms reference collection? Obviously, I'm a dilettante. Should I get a ghost connector or a trigger job for my Glock 17? I don't know. I don't modify triggers on service guns. How is Officer Mike's G45 holding up? I think it's doing great. I don't know if it's one of his primaries or not. There's a training that I expect to see him in September, and I'm curious if we'll bring it that day. Any experience with the KKM G21 threaded barrel? No, that's a Glock 45. KKM is a great company. They did make great barrels. I don't know if they're even still around. They probably are. If you needed one and you found one, and buy it with confidence. They're not a shit shop. How do you get blue label pricing? We don't get blue label pricing. If you want to get blue label pricing, go to the police academy. My G19 shoots slow. Is it me or is there a known issue? It's probably you. If you need to fix that, just you have to adjust the front sight. I have an LEO trade-in G22. I was thinking of converting it to 9mm. Does that work? Yeah, I believe it does. I know a guy who he was a cop, and he shot a lot, and huge Glock guy, and he had converted some 40 caliber Glock to 9mm, and his position was he shot this thing for a decade, and he's like, it runs and runs and runs and runs and runs and runs, and he never had an issue with it or malfunction with it or any feeding with it. Issues with it, but what he said, he goes, I would never carry it on duty just because I'm afraid. And that would be, if you want to, I wouldn't, if you have I don't know. Look, if you only had one gun and you couldn't afford another gun and you don't want to dick with 40 and it's like, you want to carry this gun, switch it to 9mm, make it run, and you know what? It's your job to make sure it runs at all times. So there's worse things to do in life than have to do a deep dive on a gun. Where can I get a limited edition Gen 4 G22? I have no idea what that is. Lipsies. Thinking about stippling my G23. Do I sand it first? I have no idea. I pay other people to stipple guns. My wife's hands are too small for her Glock. Who does the best grip reduction? I don't know. I'm not in that game anymore. Maybe Boresight Solutions, maybe. But there's all kinds of people that do that. As for the best, I'm sorry. I'm just not. I've never had a gun grip reduced because I've got full size hands. So that's not my not my bag. Sorry, I can't recommend anybody. Glock Gen 4 or Gen 5? Both. I think the Gen 4 is the first Glock that they've made. It's worth a damn. I think, hold on. I think the Gen 4 is the first Glock they've ever made that's worth a damn. It's it's aggressive enough and got the features enough, and but Gen 5, if you run across one, the Gen 5 has the ambi slide stop, and that's a huge win in my book. Have you ever bought a HK Lem trigger? I have not, but I would if I needed one. My H&K P7 doesn't get hot. My HK P7 doesn't get hot. This is a staple gun. You're not shooting it enough. You're full of shit. You don't shoot enough. Did you buy that VP9 SK? No, I don't shoot pocket rockets even if it's a VP9. Will you switch to the VP9B now that it's out? That's the push button gun? No, I think the lever's better. How much is my Mark 23 worth? That's the full size goober? To me, they're worth nothing. They're ridiculous guns. Why not a HKP 30? I don't think DASA is really the most optimal way. I just never got into it. What's up with the 20 round H&K magazine? We have one here. We haven't even shot it yet, but it's coming. VP9 versus G19. VP9. Is it card? Is it hard to conceal a VP9? No. Who makes your VP9 AIWB holster? That would be Spencer Keepers at Keepers Concealment. Will you be getting a VP9L slide? I don't know. Probably not. But if I run across a deal, maybe, because I do like the VP9 quite a bit. Jesus, 51 minutes. All right. Coffee break. Hold on. That's what I get for doing this. What do you think of the USP Expert? I don't. I think HK guns are retarded big, and I have big hands. What do you think of the M&P VTAC pistol? I like that gun. I'm not a big M&P guy, but if I had to, they were like, hey, you got to run an M&P, and there was a VTAC and versus another one, I would take the VTAC all day. What happened to the gun giveaways? People got to be entitled and stupid. We may bring it back. We probably will bring it back. I know we will, but we just got to get through a couple things. We got busy with the range last year. Holy cow. What's this one? Zev Technologies Gen 3 G17. Everything is good on the gun except the trigger pull. It comes in at 5.75 pounds. I swapped in the 2-pound striker spring that was included in the package, and it only reduced the pull weight by a ½ pound, but it caused intermittent light primer strike suggestions. Don't fuck with the triggers on your guns. What do you think of the G34 for CCW? That's the practical tactical gun. I know people that have CCW those guns. We have one. I know a department that's actually carrying them as a duty weapon, at 3 o'clock in a full-size holster. Kimber CDP 1911s, are they okay? I don't know anymore. We had a bunch of the CDP 1911s back in the 90s. I will say this, that the one problem with those guns is they were what I liked about them is they were melted dehorned guns. And that was really cool. And it kind of reminded me of the, what was that guy's name? There was a shop that came out with a gun. Cylinder and Slide, maybe? Came out with this limited edition gun, maybe 50 or 75 examples. This custom 1911 had Damascus slide. The gun was gorgeous and severely dehorned gun. This thing was like a bar soap. It was awesome. Just to get one of these was thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in the early 90s probably. And so this was like the Kimber CDP was the poor man's version of one of those. Here's the bad news. Kimber CDPs in high round count classes will tear your hands up. At least tore my hands up back then. But, my hands might be a little bit more calloused today. So I don't know. Maybe it was me, not the gun. But it tore my hands up. But I'm not going to find out. Okay, this one's from Danny. Question for the podcast. Oh, this is a geopolitical one. Were Qassam-type rockets used in the attack on Israel? And if so, were they supplied by Syria? And is Hamas and the Syrian rebels one and the same? As for the type of rockets, I do not know. I heard supposedly that even the IDF is at least publicly saying they think that the rocket launches were a command and control mistake. They were saying that it might be being serviced. Hamas is in the Gaza Strip. Hezbollah is in Lebanon, and Hezbollah was sending. They even had one of their commanders killed. They were sending troops into Syria because they're a proxy group of Iran. They were sending whole units into Syria to fight for the Syrian regime and with the Iranian military to defend Assad because Assad's their puppet. And is Hamas and Syrian rebels one and the same? Syrian rebels. Syrian rebel. The Syrian rebels would technically be. I don't know of anything about Hamas and the quote Syrian rebels being together at all. That's basically it. Oh, you know what? And that's it. So we did 55 minutes. My goal was an hour. That's awesome. Okay, this wraps up episode 126 of the John 1911 podcast. If you want to see any pictures or links or references to stuff that maybe we talked about on this, I don't know, it's a Q&A, maybe I won't do that. Go to the website, john1911.com. That's JOHN1911.com. Remember, it's all about shooting guns and having fun. Everybody, have a good day.